Okay, the Mishnah had stated that going over the things you could do on Chol Moed, it says u'misaknin es kilkulei hamayim. Misaknin es hamakul kolais. You can go ahead and take a makul kolais that we saw yesterday. That meant going ahead in the canal, going ahead and either widening it. If it got filled in up to 5 tefachim, one could go ahead and dig it out. And then it says you can be metakin, you can correct the kilkulei mayim in Rishus Harabim. The chatita means to clean out the water. You can fix the streets and the drachim. There's mikvas hamayim and the gatherings of the water, the mikvos, to make sure they're full. In a general thing, you can take care of all the needs of the general public. And you can go ahead and set up tsiyonim, set up signs vis-a-vis mesim, the dead, and we'll get into that sugya today. Exactly. So the 2 points that we're going to do tonight is, first we're going to deal with the water, then we're going to deal with the dead. Okay, so water and dead. The Grateful Dead. There he is, the Grateful Dead. He's very happy. Baruch is the dead. It only means one thing. Some people think about, he thinks about the Grateful Dead. Okay. It says, now, this is I'm going to put this chart up. Guys, look at your, I sent out something. I'm going to put this chart up and we'll gaze at this as we say the share. We're gazing at this as we say the share. Okay? Okay, so there's going to be Rabbi Yochanan and 3 brises, and right now it doesn't make any sense. We're just going to read the words, and as we read the words, as we read the words, I'm going to refer to that. Okay, as we read the words, I'm going to refer to it. Good. Says man, chatita in, one is able to go ahead and clean it out, but chafir loy, one would not be able to dig anew. You would not be able to dig a new well or on Chol Moed. Now it says it doesn't make a difference. It didn't say anything about a yachid or rabbim. It just said you can go ahead and chatita, you can go ahead and clean it out, but one would not be able to dig. Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yaakov says in Rabbi Yochanan, Lo shanu ela shein rabbim tzrich lehem. That we say you can't dig is only if it's not necessary for the rabbim. Aval rabbim tzrich lehem. If the rabbim would need it, afilu kefira muta, afilu chafira, not kefira, afilu chafira would be muta. Yes, I don't think that's ever muta. So chafira will be muta. So you want to qualify that inference that you say chatita in chafira lo, digging that is only if the rabbim don't need it. If the rabbim need it, then it'll be permitted. Fred the Gemara on that. V'chi rabbim tzricha, when rabbim go ahead and the rabbim, when the rabbim do need it, if the rabbim need it, is it permitted? Again, you're making a statement, Rabbi Yochanan. If the rabbim need it, you could dig. Good. V'atanya chaytin boyrois sichin u'ma'arois shel yachid vein tzarich loy mishal rabbim vein chayfim boyrois sichin u'ma'arois shel rabbim vein tzarich loy mishal yachid. Okay, guys, look at the first brisa. We just said the first brisa. When it comes to Yachid Rabbim Chaytet, now leave out the brackets. The brackets, leave it out. Don't just ignore them. Make believe they're not there. The brackets. So now Yachid Rabbim Chaytet. Okay, you could do that, but Yachid Rabbim Loy Chayfer cannot dig. So Rabbi Yochanan said you could dig, and we're going to establish that this brisa is speaking about when what? When l'chayra in the kasha. You need it. Even if the rabbim need it, you can't dig, and that's going to be the problem. My love, back in the Gemara, keep your head again, go back and forth. My love, b'sherabbim tzrich lehem, and so you have a kasha and Rabbi Yochanan from a Tanoic source. We say that what you cannot dig. Says the Gemara, loy b'shein rabbim tzrich lehem. It's speaking where the rabbim don't need it. So now it's not a problem. If it's speaking the chafira, if you look at the chart, shein tzarich, then you can't dig, then it makes sense. Rabbi Yochanan said you could dig when you need it. When you don't need it, you can't dig. Good. Now, relative to that, if you're telling me is when the Rabbim you don't need it, Gabe Yachid, Shein Yachid Sarach Lem. Now, guys, look up at the chart. Look at Brisa Aleph. If you're telling me this is speaking Shein Sarach, then look up. You're going to say the Yachid, also speaking Ein Sarach, meaning a Yachid is able to clean if you don't need it. We're going to prove to you not. In other words, symmetry requires that the Brisa is speaking in the same case. So if this is speaking where the Rabbim don't need it, it must be over here, Chatita, also the Rabbim, the Yachid doesn't need it. And you're telling me the Yachid, even if he doesn't need it, can do it? I'll prove to you not. I'll prove to you not. For Tanya, second Brisa. Boirois Sichlim Arois Shal Yachid, Kainsemayim L'Seicha, you can put water inside. Avalei Chaititim, but you can't go ahead and clean it out. V'lei Shafines Sitkayim, you can't go ahead and fix the cracks. However, Shal Rabbim, the Rabbim Chaititim, you could, I son, V'Shafines Sitkayim. So guys, now look at Brisa number 2. You created a problem. What's your problem? According to this, Brisa Aleph, a Yachid can clean, even if what? If he doesn't need it. Now the Brisa base says a Yachid cannot, right? Lo choitate. So you have a problem this to this. Brisa number 2 to Brisa number 1, vis-a-vis the cleaning out of the Yachid. Apparently not. Velamai, what do you have to say? Going back to the first Brisa, b'shiyachid sarach lehem. It must be, guys, over here, go back to the first Brisa. It must be the Yachid needs it. So if the Yachid needs it, then he could clean it out. So God, now, it must be if the Rabbim needs it, he still can't dig. Back to the original question. The Kavasi Gabi Rabbim B'Sharabim Tzrich Lehem. Chafir mi asira. So now, guys, watch. So look at the chart. Look at the chart. Here, you want to say the following. Rabbi Yochanan says that what? That if you need it, you can dig, right? If you need it, you can dig. And the first price that it says you can't dig is speaking where you don't need it. Now, if this is speaking you can't need it over here, then it must be the Yachid also doesn't need it. Good. Now, going back to the second brisa, it says a Yachid cannot go ahead and do it. You told me a Yachid could do it. So it must be now reverting back to the first brisa, it must be speaking where the Yachid needs it. To answer up the difference between Brisa Aleph and Brisa Base, going according to the axis from left to right, guys, from left to right. You're telling me the Yachid could go ahead and clean, and the second Brisa says the Yachid can't clean. It must be, therefore, the second Brisa is speaking where the Yachid does not need it, and the first Brisa is speaking where the Yachid does need it. Good? Now, if the first Brisa is speaking where the Yachid does need it, let's go down now. Go from north to south. It must be speaking the Yachid can what? He could what? He even when what he needs it, he can't dig. So we're back to the original question, right? We're back to the original question. Good. Now we're gonna have a third. If we have a third brisa that makes this even more difficult, says the Gemara. Velamai. So now, but Tanya, you're telling me where Yachid needs it, he can't dig. That he could dig. Me Assyria would it be us to dig? Vatanya. These boiris are again. These are all different types of water systems. Shal Yachid kainsemayim l'seicha v'chaytin I saw. Avloi shafin eset kayem v'lei chaytin l'seicha v'lei sadin I saw besid b'shal Rabbim. The Rabbim chayfin I saw you could dig. Besadin I say besid you could smear it with lime. So now, guys, this is the third brisa. Yachid could be chaytet. Rabbim could go ahead and dig. So now you got a problem, guys. Look, brisa Gimel says Rabbim could dig. Brisa Aleph says Rabbim can't dig. We don't need Brisa 2 anymore. We need a Brisa 2 for the first case of the Yachid. So guys, look at the chart. Bottom axis, Rabbim Chayfrim, and over here, Loy Chayfrim, they can't. How do you reconcile the two? Elakasha Hach Kamaisa, number 3 to number 1. Number 3 saying you could dig, the Rabbim could dig. Brisa number 1, the Rabbim cannot dig. So Tiritz Hachi, we're going to go ahead and make a hybrid out of the Brisa. You can go ahead and dig. Guys, that Brisa number 1. Take a look. Go here. You see the bracket now. Not the bracket. The rectangle. That's the answer, guys. The rectangle's the answer. This Brisa is speaking, guys, when you need it. Therefore, since he needs it, he could be chaytet. Over here, it's speaking what? Where he doesn't need it. Therefore, loy chaytet. Going over here, yachid chaytet when he needs it. Good. So now, over here, going down, the Rabbim can dig when? With Sarach, when they need it. And this bottom brisa over here, the Yachid and Rabbi can't dig is when Geshein it's Sarach. And everything shtim. Everything makes sense now. We've gone ahead for all intents and purposes and put everything together. Let's go through one more time. What are we doing in Bryce number 1? We're saying it's not speaking universal. Over here, guys, here you're going to say it's speaking where you don't need it. Bryce number 2 is where you don't need. That's why I put the arrows in the bottom. Bryce number 3 is speaking where you do need it. Good. So now, in order to make everything shtim, we're going to have to take the first brisa and say it's speaking in 2 scenarios. A yachid v'rabim chaytit when sarach when you need it. Why? Because a yachid only when he needs it. Now it's good with the second brisa. The second brisa is speaking late sarach. Since it's late sarach, then what? Then he can't do chatita. The third brisa. Now forget third brisa. Yachid is speaking sarach. Therefore, the rabbin can dig. And over here in the first brisa, where this rabbin can't dig, is speaking kashein sarach, and everything what is easy as apple pie. Again, this is one of the situations where I said I either did something good pedagogically, or you guys don't have a clue what's going on. It made some sense, right? Yeah, I think so. No, I think it made some sense. I mean, it's like just moving around the pieces, right? Okay, let's see it inside. Ella kasha, ella kashach kamai. So we're going to 3 to 1. Bryce number 1 says you can't dig. Bryce number 3 says you could dig. So tiritzachi. The first brisa. We're making all the corrections in the first brisa. That's the box, the rectangle tzarich lehem. That's a given. Even chafir, if the rabbin needs it, right, it would be okay, as we see in number 3. As we could see in number 1. That if he doesn't need it. Easy. I think we're good. May Simcha, you got that? May Simcha, impressive little young man. Okay, here you go. Ravashi, says Ravashi, Masnisa Nami Deka. The Mishnah is also Meduyak. The Mishnah is also Meduyak that when the rabbin needs it, you could go ahead and do it. Tiktani, Oisin called Sarchei Rabbim. Guys, look at the Mishnah. Look back in the Mishnah. Look back, Beis Amid Aleph. Go back to Beis Amid Aleph. You got a little cholent in the end of the Mishnah, a bunch of statements, one after the other. So let's go through those statements. And we're saying that speaking, you clean it out. You clean up the roads and the mikvahs. And then listen to this line. That's the lashon of a klal, a rule. Kol. What's that kol coming to include? It's coming to include what? That when you need it, you can go ahead and dig. It doesn't say anything about digging. It says misaknin. Misaknin means you go ahead and fix an existing well, existing body of water. No, this kol tzarchei rabim, even to initiate and dig, you will be able to do. Yeah, that's what Rabbi Ashi's medayik from the lashon of the Mishnah. He sees in those words, kol tzarchei rabim means what? It means you can initiate a digging. Says the Gemara. Amar Ravashi back by us. Hey and Aleph. Amar Ravashi Asisinami Deka Diktani. Oisin called Sarchei Rabim. Kol Lasui Mai. What does the kol come to include? Lav Lasui Chafira does not go ahead to include Chafira Loi. No, which is what we want. Loi Lasui Hadatanya. The following brisa. Yoitzel the Kavitz says a drachim. You can go out and clear all the thorns from the road. Well, the takenis rechavais in the streets. The esat and those are the marketplaces. V'lomedes hamikvois and measured mikvois. V'cham mikvah shem saw, and any mikvah that does not have about 40 saw, any mikvah that does not contain 40 saw, my gilun leisoich arbaim saw. You go ahead and make sure it's 40 saw. How do you know if you don't do you go out and you don't take care of all these things? Shekol domim shenishbuchu sham malaleim akasav kileim shafram. Let's say people get damaged on the road from all the obstacles that you didn't clean, right? And you get damaged. It's like you spill their blood. The pasuk says, so the chayra, what do you see? That's what the kol comes to include. So your diak Rav Ashi is not a good diak. You want to be medayik. The kol means you can go ahead and dig. Maybe that kol means you can do all of these maintenance of cleaning up the roads, but not that what? It means you could dig, so you don't have a diak Rav Ashi. Says, what are you talking about? Right before we said Oisa Kol Tzarchei Rabim, what did we say? Umisakner Esadrachim, Vesarachayvos, Vesamikvois, right? V'oisin, Vikvois. So you see that what? That those were already included. So it must be the Oisa Kol Tzarchei Rabim Lasui. My Lav Lasui Chafira. It must be to include Chafira. Shmamina, says Rav Ashi. You can be medayik from the Mishnah that when the Rabbim needs it, you can initiate what? You can initiate what? It was a pretty good chart. You can initiate what? You can initiate the act of digging. You can initiate the act of digging. I think I checked out Rabbi Stefanski, at least Stefanski's side. He's the one who he has his colored charts, and I kind of got my idea from him. So he was very helpful. Very good. Okay. On Metzayenes HaKfaros, you can go ahead and now in those days, guys, we think of kfaros, we think of cemeteries. We don't find dead people generally lying along the roads. In the time of we paskin that a person dies, especially a Meis Mitzvah, he's kono makomo. He acquires the place where he died, and they'd have, if it wasn't a Beis HaKfaros, they'd have here and there you'd have dead bodies. So in order to avoid the problem for kahanim who are asur, and B for Yisrael who are bringing their truma can be metama, right? And to avoid all those problems, you had to go ahead and be mitzayin. You had to go ahead and literally lime or put it tzioin, put some type of, we think of it tzioin being a tombstone. That's not necessarily. It's just to be where a person would know that there's tumah here because you're worried about oil hames. You're worried about oil hames. You're not worried about maga. You're not worried about tumas of touching. You're not about tumas of hesed of moving it or carrying it. You're worried about tumas mace, being mal on a mace. If you have a mace, so you mal. There's two ways. The mace can be over here in the same dalamas. It can be not dalamas, the same roof. Or if here's the mace and you're on top of the mace, you're worried about an oil mace. So therefore, to avoid that problem, they mean mitzayin. Now, Omar Reb Shimon ben Pazi remes l'tzion kavos min haTorah. Where's an illusion that you go ahead and you do this? How is it an illusion? Now look at Tosfos, guys. Remes l'tzion, the high krolik siv elolasul avoid a pasuk we're going to mention in the future. So Tosfos, by the way, a question. Why do you say the following pasuk we're going to bring that's speaking about the battle of Gog Magog, right? It's speaking about the future. So how can you use that a remez, right? That's in the future. You could learn from there. Okay, so now the next Tosfos says clearly, it's mashma that the source to go ahead and demarcate these areas as a source in the Raisa. Okay, so now Remez l'tziyam in a Torah. So Remez Tamalema ura etzem. This is a pasuk in Yecheskel. Ura etzem adam ubana etzleit tzion. You'll see in the battle of Gog and Magog. You'll see an etzem and you'll build a tzion. Just for a tremendous kasha that you might want to think about. But a goy is not matama to misoil. So you might want to look at any research at Tosfos in Nida, Daf Nun Zayin, discusses that. Now, you're telling me, guys, this is the rice of the source, right? So the rice means that's min Torah. You're quoting your source from a pasuk in Yecheskel. So if it's min Torah, why did you do from the time that until Yecheskel came along? We've had this Gemara before. So it's going so I'm going to read Rashi. Hamekame delesi Yecheskel man Omar. Ulataimei Chodam Rav Chisda Davazem Mitaris Moshe Ben Loy Lamadu Medibri Yecheskel Ben Buzi Lamadu Kol Ben Necha Erel Lev, any Ben Necha who is a koifer, the Erel Baso or is an oral La Yavai El Mikdashi can't go ahead and do the Avodah. Mekame delesi Yecheskel. This is the pasuk in Yecheskel before Yecheskel came along. Man Omar, who said it? Ella, what do you have to say? Gemara Gemirila. We had a Messiah that you had to be mitzayin by a mace. You had a Messiah that you couldn't go ahead and do what? The avodah, if you were a koifer, or if you were an oral, and the asa Yecheskel came along for asmachei and he found support from it. But this is not the classic asmachta where it's a derabanan. This is the Raisadika. Hachanami Gemara Gemirila here also by us by Etzion for a mace. V'asa Yecheskel asmachei found the pasuk by Gog Magog. Rabbi found a source in the Torah proper. He finds a source in the Torah proper. It says the Mitzorah, he sits outside the Machne, guys, v'tamei yikra. And he has to call out that he's tamei. Tuma karuyala v'aimeres le parish. The Tuma calls out and says, stay away from me. I'm a mitzvah, stay away. Barbarid Rav Uziel, Rabba. So it says Israel, the son of Rabbi Uziel Barba, Tuma Koireloi Vaymas Le Parish. Gemara, how could you use the pasuk from Mitzvah to tell me a din that you have to mitzayin to go ahead and say stay away from the Tuma? V'haila hachiu the asa. Ahumi boy le'lechetanya. We need the following brisa. The Tamei Yikra. The Mitzvah says calls out that what he is Tamei. The Tamei Yikra. Sarch l'adiyat sari l'rabim. He has to inform others about his Saturday's Mitzvah. For Rabbim v'akshem of rachamim, that others should daven for him. So since I need the pasuk Tamei Yikra to tell me that people have to daven, how could you use it to tell me that there's a mitzvah to mitzayin by a mace? Since Mariam Kain lichtei v'tamei Yikra, it should just say one v'tamei. My v'tamei the double lashon. Shema min atarte. We had two dinim. One, you have to inform people of your tumas that they should daven for you, and also one that mitzayim by a mace. The mitzayim the tum by a mace. Abaye says from here, and again, I'm fascinated by this 9 different sources, guys. 9 different sources for this. In other words, you're not supposed to don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind man. So here you are, you're a kayin, and all of a sudden you find out that you walked over a grave without knowing it. Go ahead and warn him. So liftei ivar in front of the blind person. In this case, the kayin who wouldn't know about it. If you didn't go ahead and put it tzion by it, put it tzion.
Well, actually, 1 second. According to this Gemara, so the person is sick, he shouldn't hold it to himself. He should help people. He would just say,
again, there's chulukei deis. There's a day that will inform people you're sick. There's a day for a Kadosh Baruch Hu to perform a nes nigla, right? Because the people, again, with people we daven for are usually people who've been diagnosed with diseases that al piderech hatev you can't get better. Most of the time you're davening a person who's stage 4 cancer. So by not in telling people the chance for a Kadosh Baruch Hu doing a nes those are 2 drachim. Papa Ama mehacha. It says pasuk in Yeshaya, "V'amru solu panu derech." Go ahead, pave and clean the way. Chanina Amar harimu michshal miderech ami. That's the second part of the pasuk. Yeah, this is on Yom Kippur. This is on Yom Kippur of Torah. Harimu michshal miderech ami. Go ahead and remove the michshal miderech ami from my people. Yeshua brei the Ravidi Yoma mehata medatel lehem es haderech yelchuba. Go ahead and let the way they should, again, allusion to the way they should be able to go to know that there's no tumah there. Masucho Amar bizartim es pnei yisrael mitumasam. Go ahead and separate pnei yisrael mituma by going ahead and setting up a tzion. Ravashi Yoma ushmartim es mishmarti. Go ahead and watch my mishmeres. Also mishmarti lemishmarti. There's a mitzvah, guys, to be shomer your truma. Make a mishmeres to guarding the truma by going ahead and ensuring there'll be a tzion that you won't come to mitama the truma. Ravina Amar, Ravina says, guys, listen to this. This is a Peladiga Gemara with a great Maisa from the Heilige Meshech Chachma. Now, it says, V'sam derech erenu b'yesh elakim. V'sam derech, right? What is some derech means? Someone places derech, erenu will see the salvation of Hashem. Amr Shuman Levi, kol hasham, play on words, sin to shin. The sin means to put. Shum means to evaluate, like a shuma, like we make a shuma evaluation, right? Guys, some means to put, it's like sim, and then shum means to evaluate. So Amr B'Shum Levi, listen to this, guys. Kol hasham or choisav, anyone who evaluates his ways, so don't read it as some derech arenu b'yeshel kem, el v'sham derech. A person who evaluates how he's going will be zoicha to see the Yeshua of Hashem. Shneimar v'sam derech atikre v'sam. Don't read it with v'sam ela v'sham. Only read it with v'sham. Derech arenu b'yeshel kem. Rav Yani Havle Ahu Talmida. Rav Yani had this Talmud the Chol Yuma Havi Makshlee. He always asked some questions. He always said great questions. We asked these great questions. But when there was on the Shabbos of the Regel that many people were there, so he didn't ask them the questions. What? Kari Aleha, Rabbi Yanai said in this Talmud, like Vishom Derech Erenu V'yesh Elokim, that in other words, you thought about what you're doing rather than asking me a question publicly, which might embarrass me. So you thought about it. You will be Zaychid to see Yeshua Hashem. So listen to this Ma'aseh with the Meshech Chachma, guys. Now the difference between the V'sam V'sham is what? Is one's a sin and one's a shin, right? So So he said like this. He went, Meir Simcha went with a Rav to a shul. And the Rav in the shul was giving a drasha, or he's saying over some Torah. And in the middle of the drasha, the Rav who was Meir Simcha called out, "You're wrong." In front of everybody, he called out, "You're wrong." Rav Yanai, this Talmud went out of his way to go ahead and ensure that he wouldn't question him. That's what the Rav said. Rav Meir Simcha said to him, "You don't know," told to the Rav, "you don't know your left from your right." That's what he said. You don't know your right from your left. So after it was over, the Rav said, "I said wrong pshat." He goes, "No, you don't know a Gemara in Moed Katan. What does Gemara say about Moed Katan? Right? A person, before they talk, V'sham derech, they should evaluate what they think about, right? You don't know your left, V'sam from your right, V'sham, right? The sin is on the left. So you, this is brilliant. You weren't thinking. Had you thought, why would you embarrass him, Barabim? You don't know your left from your right. You don't know the dot that's on top of the sin, the left of the sin, versus the dot that's on the right. Is that fellow the Gemara? No, Meir Simcha, you're named after him. There he is. Meir Sim. Torah a mitzainin, right? Now, just a derech hakdama. We know that a mace has a tremendous chumrah. That mace, there's like a mace can be b'tamah tumas oil, a mitzayra can be b'tamah tumas oil. There's certain things that have tremendous tumas oil. Predominantly a mace. You don't even need the whole body of a mace, even some body parts. So but the Gemara is just basically going through different parts. You'd have to put a tzion on because of this problem. Aim mitzainin, you don't go ahead and make it tzion. Loyal kazayis min mace. Not on a kazayis. No, this mashma kazayis min mace is not mitama tumas oil. We'll see this. We'll ask on that. Loyal etzim kisayra. If you have a bone the size of a barley bean, you don't have to put a tzion on top of that. Loyal dava sheina mitama b'oil. Nor on something that's not mitama b'oil. A part of something that's not mitama b'oil, that the tumah that is not mitama b'oil, you wouldn't have to. Ava mitzainin ala shidra. Let's say if you have an intact spinal column, it's not missing any of the vertebrae. We had machlokes b'sham and b'silu. V'ala golgoilis, the skull of a person. They're both mitama tumas oil. Al roiv binyan, or you have majority of what? Of this meaning, you have the two thighs and one from the calf to the thigh. That gives the height of the person, is your legs. That would be mitamatus oil. Roiv minyan, let's say you have the majority of bones, even if it's not roiv binyan. The aim it's sign al abadois. If it's a Beis HaKfaris, you don't have to make it sian, guys. The Kayin knows to stay away from Beis HaKfaris. You don't make it sian on that. Again, with my akdama, you make it seen in a place where someone would not know. In other words, a place where you might get into trouble. Excuse me. I really don't like when you go through here what I'm saying, Share, okay? So you want to go around. Okay, I'm sorry.
I don't want to go to the back door.
Okay. So in the future, please don't do it, okay? Thank you. Okay. Now, you could be mitzayina ala sveikos. You can go ahead, Rana, and it's a suffix. When it's a suffix, we're going to see what that is soon. Then you put what? You put the tzion, you put the marker. Ve'elun as what are the sveikos that you have to put the marker on? Is schachais. Schachais are going to see. We're going to see literally canopies, uprois and protrusions, ubeis hapras. We'll explain all of these three things. Ve'imamid in tzion b'makam tuma shloila hafsedes atayris. Guys, you don't put the tzion directly on the tuma, because then it's too late. You're tamei. So you go ahead, you put the tzion obviously before the tumah, right? That you shouldn't get to it. Nor should you put the tzion so far away from the tumah that there should be a space between the tzion and the tumah, such a discrepancy that you would take away the land of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, that's the statement. Now let's go over the statement. The first statement was you do not need a tzion and a kazayis from a mace. Kazayis from a mace in a metama oil. Says the Gemara for her tanan, it's a Mishnah oilis. Elu shem mitamoyin ba'oil. These are the things that are mitama ba'oil. Kizayis min ames. So you see l'chayra, it's shver, guys. You just told me you do not look at the second line from the top of Gemara. Eimit sayin loyal kizayis min ames. You don't have to mark off an area That's kazayis min mace. But here you're saying openly a Mishnah Noilis says the Mishnah Mefurish. You kazayis min mace is mitama tumas oil. So I'm Papa hocha b'kazayis mitzutemes askinan. Where do we say you don't have to put a tzion on it? Is when it was exactly a kazayis. What happens? We know a mace decomposes. So what you're going to put it in, and it's going to decompose, right? The soif michsa chaser. Eventually, it's going to be lacking that shear. So now, guys, what? Let's go through it. So you bury that kazayis min mace right now. It's going to be mitama, right? Good. What in a month? What's going to be? Not. So if you put it, I'd rather not put it in there, and whatever happens in that short period of time, rather than in the future going ahead and having people mitama truma. That's very beautiful. The saif michsar chaser. In the end, it's going to be less than the kazayis from the mace, and it's not mitama the Messiah. Mutiv yisifu alav truma kadashim lefi shah. Better to burn on it a truma kadashim lefi shah the whole time it's mechoser. Val yisifu alav oilam, rather than going ahead and burning forever, thinking that there's really what. You have if you have mitzayin it, you're going to go ahead and say, "Wow, there's real tumah there." It's not real tumah there. Okay. Beilin as sveikus, we said you don't go ahead and what you are mitzayin on sveikus. On a vadai, a basic forest, you don't. On a suffix, you do. So we said three things. We said schachos, prois, and basic pras. Okay, the first two are easy. Schachos and prois. Schachos is ilan amesach ala aretz. So you have an ilan, a tree. Part of the tree is in a summit. Now, one of the branches of the tree, there's a mace underneath one of them. You don't know which one. So you mitzayin, al safik you mitzayin, because you don't know where vadai it is. So therefore you mitzayin. And on prois zayotzim ageder, you have a protrusion coming out of the building. And underneath one of the protrusions, a few protrusions, like a hacienda, views of hacienda. Under one of them is a mace. You don't know which one. So go ahead, be mitzayin. Now, besa pras, there's three types of besa pras. Okay. And besa prasi mitzayin or besa pras kiditnan. Hachoirish es hakever. Someone goes ahead and is choirish es hakever. Hari oisa besa pras. If you go ahead and there's a kever there. There was a body there. You plowed over it, and then it makes the field a besa pras. It meaning that you're worried that somewhere in this. There might be, most of the body is broken up, the bones are broken up, but you may have etzem kisoira. It's a besa pras. The kamuoisa, what's the area from where the kever was that you have to worry about? Is molei maneh, that's the shear. What's molei maneh is meya amma. So there's the machlokes between Rashi and the Rambam. Doesn't mean, let's say over here, it's 50 and 50 in directional or 100 and 100. No, here's the mace. Is it 50 in this direction, 50 and 100? Or no, 100 this way and 100 this way. It's machlokes. The Gemara, ubesa pras mi metama ba'oil, is a besa pras metama ba'oil that you have to go ahead and make it sin. Guys, if a besa pras is metama ba'oil, you can't walk in there. If you're a kohen or you're a Jew that's going to bring his korban Pesach, and you're within 7 days, the process of cleansing from tumas mace is a 7-day process, and you're going to go through there, you have tsaris, right? So you're telling me when it says you have to put a tzion on it, it must be, you're worried about, again, what are you worried about? Oil. You're worried, and you must be worried about tumas oil. When you said you're going to go ahead and you have to mitzay in the base of the pras, it's because you're worried about tumas oil. Fred the Gemara Kasha, why are you worried based on pras by tumas oil? You know what? Get down on your hands and knees and blow, because you know what we're only worried about? We're only worried about an etzim the size of a barley bean. An etzim the size of the barley bean is not metama tumas oil. So guys, once you're showing me that you have an option, obviously it's not metama tumas oil, because you're going in there and you're blowing it. Fred the Gemara Kasha, why would you need a tzion around the base of pras? A base of pras is not metama tumas oil. If it's not metama tumas oil, then you don't need a tzion around it. Rav Yehuda bar Ami Mishmei Ula Amar, base of pras shenidish tahar. So you see a base of pras that was nidish, meaning even if, guys, you didn't blow, trampled on. Guys, trampled on, meaning you can walk through it. You know why? Because any bone that was there is crushed and buried through the trampling of people. So either way, it's not matama to misoil. So why do you need it tzion? And for the Gemara on Rapapa Kasha, kan besada she'avi b'keva, kan besada she'nechel b'keva. Let's make a difference between two things. One, I know in this field there's a keva. I also know that the field's been plowed. That you don't have to be mitzayim. When the Bryce above said that you have to make it tziyah around the base of pras, it was speaking about you know there's a kever in the field, but you don't know where the kever is. If there's an intact kever, the capacity to transmit tumas oil is there. I don't know where it is, so it's called the base of pras, right?
But it's plowed. It's not kever. It's not.
This again, it's not plowed. There's two cases, two separate cases. That's what we're answering now. That we said that the base of pras, that you can go mina peach, you can be baidik by blowing, or if it was trampled upon, that's speaking one that had been plowed. Since it was plowed, the bones were broken up. Since it's broken up, you don't have to worry about tumas oil. Where does the Brisa say Tanar Rabbanan mitzayin ala sveikos? I'm assuming where it is. I know it's there. I don't know where it is. Okay, so that's the one that was speaking about. Like kasha, kam besada she'avid b'kever. That's where you have to mitzayin. Kam besada she'nechesh b'kever. That's where you don't have to be mitzayin. But it's sada.
It's a highway. Put a highway over it, like you put highways over the kever.
Again, this is the problem with the seichachin of those people who have been zeicha to drive the interborough. That now is called the Jackie Robinson. There, I was at an uncle. Was it Cayenne?
It was called interborough. Now it's the Jackie.
Yeah, right. I still. They
They
would go ahead, and there was trees coming out from Mount Judah Cemetery, and they'd be makbid, not to drive in that direction, where the trees were. Okay, again, let's anyway. Says the Gemara, the sada shnechus b'keva based on pras correlate. As no 1 second, a sada that has been plowed over, are you calling a base of pras? No, but you tell me there's two types. Vatran shloisha base of pras says more in. Vatran is a proof, guys. Here's a proof. Now Vatanya b'nichus, here's a proof. So shloisha base of pras saying there are three fields that have a halacha base of pras, and they have different halachas. So the sheneva but kever, a field where you lost the kever, and you're not allowed to go into there, guys. You would not be able to walk into that field. If you're a kohen or a yisrael that's going to do his what, is kachim, you can't do it. The sada shenechesh b'kever, a sada which has been plowed over, that you will be able to go in through ayidei bedika by blowing. Usada buchin and a sada of boichin. My sada boichin. Listen to this, guys. Rabbi Yeshua bar Abba Mishmei de'ula Amar. Sada shemaftirin b'mesim. It's a sada that they would take leave of each other b'mesim. You would bring a mace from one city, you carry to a base like forest in another city, and then you leave it for the other people, the Chaver Kaddish in the city, you bring it to the berry. Good? So now what are you worried about? So the time of my, what's the reason it's called a sada base apras? That's a suffix. Amravimi mishum yish bailam nagu boy. Yish bailam nagu. This is really, this is, no, it's unbelievable. I want to read the Rashi to you. Rashi says, as soon as I can find it, 3 lines down. Guys, 4 lines down. They bring him from a faraway place, and the body is decomposed. The daldal aver, right? An aver will become disattached from the skeleton. The nafal sham, and it's going to fall there. Elu al elu, and they're going to go ahead and be miyayish. In other words, you're going to leave it there. So you're worried about what? It says an aver. An aver is basar gidim and atsamais. Okay, this is this is beyond the scope of the Daf Yomi share. I don't want. Okay, you have to say an aver. Of course, it's the bone. Then we get the shaila. Which bone is it? Which bone is it? Right? Because there's only certain bones on mitama. So Rashi is an aver. An aver, guys, has meat on it. It has a sinew on it, and has bone on it. So you're worried about that situation. Okay. Anyway, that's a state. That's a state. Bochim is called the base of pras. Fred the Gemara.
It's an accident. It's not on purpose.
Not on purpose. Says the word the state sadish nechresh bakeva like boit sioin. Again, Rav Papa said above, guys, 2 types of base of pras. The one that needs a tzion is where it has an intact grave, but you don't know where it is. The one that does not need a tzion is one that was plowed over. We're asking on that. I'll show you that one that was plowed over does require a tzion. One that was plowed over does require a tzion. But Tanya, matzah sada mitziyonos, you find a field that had been, was marked, there was demarcated, that there was a mace there. Then you do a mativoy, and you don't know what the nature exactly is. Yesh bailonos, if you have trees there, you do a shenechabash keva. In other words, since you know there's trees and you have to plow for the trees, you could be assured that what? That there was a keva there. So there's your kasha, guys. What do you see? Even though it was nechvash bakeva, it was plowed over. That's a kasha. Ein bailonos, if there's no trees, you do a she'avid bakeva. In other words, guys, look at me. I have a field. Around the field, there is a tzion.
There's a body in there.
Now, I know that if there's a tzion, I have to worry about oil and mace. Good? Says the Brisa, if I don't have trees, the reason that it goes ahead and it's surrounded is you know for sure there's an intact keva there.
There's no plow. No trees, no plow.
If, however, there was trees there, you know for sure that it was plowed over. So what do you see? Even when it's plowed over, you need to demarcate it. You have to go ahead and make it tzion. Rapapa, you told me when you plow it over, you don't have to worry about oil and mace. Over here, we're saying you do have to worry about oil and mace. That's the kashan of Rapapa. What? Okay, you're going to see where you put it.
Maybe it was marked.
Okay, so it says that if the trees, you could see from the trees that they needed all the time, that they were old enough that it would have been there, that they all the time they needed charisha. They asked you a question. Says so now. So matzah sada mitzuyim yesh bailana yesh bidu shenechad b'keva. Ein bailana yesh bidu shav b'keva. Rabbi Yehuda says at shehei sham zaken or talmid. You need a zaken or a talmid chacham there to go ahead and paskin. It's not a chazaka that has been plowed over, even with trees, until what? Until you ask a zaken or a talmid. The bottom line is you got a kasha and a papa. You see that what? A field that's been plowed over still requires a tzion. Amra papa no. Ki tanya hi besada shava b'kever. It's a sada the shava b'kever. It's tziyunei. Yesh ba'ilanois b'yadua shenechesh b'kever. So that's your teretz. That's your teretz. That in other words, if you know if there's ilanois there, you know that what that there had been a mace there, guys. There was a mace there, like Rabbi Avi said, there was a mace, and you plowed it over. You know why you plowed over the mace? Because of the trees, and therefore you'll be able to go in either bedika, either through blowing, or if like Yehuda just walk through it. And you won't be able to go in there at all. If there's no nafkamina, there's a tzion there. Guys, listen, I'm asking you a kasha. If there's a tzion there, my nafkamina, lachari, you can't go in. The answer is no. If there's trees there, you would be able to go in, al yedei bedika, using the process of blowing. Because since there's trees, it's been plowed. If there's no trees there, you will not be able to go in, because why? You have to worry about wherever that oil is, where you don't know where it is, you have to worry about tumas oil. Let's worry the trees are on the inside and the kev is on the outside. It says, the trees are by the boundary. Where Ula gives us his teretz in the Sefton and the Darim, we're going to apply it over here as well. It says, maybe the tum is on the inside, and the ilonis on the outside. And when you're going to, so therefore what? The ilonis guys were plowed through, right? But the tumas were on the inside, so the plow never made it to the mace. Notice, if I have the trees over here, and if the mace over here, you're going to tell me you plowed. So I plowed over here, very good. But over here, you have an intact mace. So how are you allowed to go in there through bedika? You have a problem with tumas oil. Says the Gemara, I'll give you two terutzim. One, it's speaking b'misuvachim, that they're haphazardly through the basic forest. So obviously, all over the place. Obviously, you went ahead and you plowed all over the place. A second teretz is very same. Hamaran emerakin siyam imakim tuma. Shalei lahafsid eretz Yisrael. So obviously, they're not going to go ahead and make such a If there's a tzir in there, it's going to be right there next to it, and therefore you don't have to worry. Let's just finish up. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi says, it's not enough to say you have a tree, and therefore, since you have a tree, it's been plowed over. You need a zakin or a talmud to ask. We hear from this. Sumer Rabbanon, we saw the tiniest of Dalit. Sumer Rabbanon means a young Talmud Chacham. The Ikim Masa, who's in the city. All the necessities of the city are placed upon him. Thank you for listening.
Sure, thank you.
Have a good night. This is where